I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to go through my boss's desk. I'm the quiet one in the office. The guy who double-checks spreadsheets, eats lunch at his desk, and says good work instead of high-fiving. I've been with the company for 7 years, long enough to know where every policy lives and how every shortcut breaks. But when my boss, Mark Leland, didn't show up for 2 weeks, no calls, no messages, no Zooms, I realized nobody else was asking questions. HR said he was on extended leave. Our director of operations smiled like she'd been told to, repeating that phrase word for word. But Mark's calendar was still open on the shared drive, full of client meetings that should have happened days ago. His mug, the one that said World's Okayest Manager, was still half full of dried coffee. His jacket hung on the back of his chair. It didn't look like vacation. It looked like he'd vanished mid-sentence. On the 10th day, payroll sent an email about a temporary reallocation of Q4 bonuses due to unforeseen budget constraints. It didn't name numbers, but I knew what it meant. I'd built the damn projection sheet myself. $480,000 set aside for employee bonuses. Suddenly gone. That night, I stayed late. The office after dark feels different. Colder, like the hum of the air vents knows you shouldn't be there. I told myself I just needed to grab a backup drive from Mark's cabinet. That was the story I would have told if anyone walked in. But really, I wanted to know what he'd left behind. His office smelled like stale cologne and burnt dust from an overworked desktop tower. The monitor still glowed faintly in sleep mode, blinking the company logo every few seconds. On his desk, beneath a stack of expense reports, there was a handwritten note. Back Monday. Keep it quiet. It was dated 2 Mondays ago. I opened the top drawer. Pens, receipts, gum wrappers. Nothing unusual. The second drawer had folders labeled Vendors. One stood out, Nova Vista LLC. I'd never heard of them. The invoice inside was clean, professional, and completely fake. Vague services, round numbers, and a signature that wasn't his. The date matched the night before the bonus freeze. Underneath, there was a small black USB drive with a yellow tag. Q4 backup. My pulse spiked. Backups were my world. Mark never handled them himself. He always told me, "That's your department, numbers guy." For 10 minutes I just sat there, the drive in my hand, listening to the hum of the ceiling lights. Every instinct screamed to leave it alone. But curiosity is a slow poison. It doesn't kill you right away. It just eats through the part of you that believes in leaving things as they are. I plugged it into my laptop in the empty conference room. The screen blinked, then filled with files. Spreadsheets, transfer logs, internal memos. I opened the most recent one. Rows of wire transfers. 3 totals that matched the missing $480K. Each sent to Nova Vista LLC. The sender? M. Sir Leland, authorized by J. Givens, Finance. I recognized the name, Julia Givens, the financial controller. She and Mark had been close. The kind of close that makes other people stop talking when they walk into the break room. I clicked through the folders. One contained drafts of emails between them. Once it clears, we're free. Nobody will question it. The pool resets in Q1. Delete this after reading. My stomach turned. At first I thought it was an affair, but the more I read, the clearer it became. It wasn't about love, it was about money. The reallocation was a cover. Mark had moved the bonus pool through shell invoices, and Julia had authorized them. They'd taken it all. Every cent that was supposed to reward 100 people for a brutal quarter. I copied everything to my own encrypted drive, then removed the USB, wiping fingerprints from its surface with the cuff of my sleeve. My hands were shaking so badly the laptop almost slipped. When I left his office, the hallway lights flickered, motion sensors half awake. I felt like they were watching me. My reflection followed me across the glass doors, pale, guilty, smaller than I'd ever looked before. At the elevator, I caught myself thinking, maybe he'll come back tomorrow. Maybe this will all make sense. But deep down, I already knew. It wouldn't. As the door slid shut, I caught one last glimpse of his empty chair, the jacket still hanging there, the note on the desk. Back Monday. I should have left it there. I should have gone home, shut down my laptop, and waited for HR to clean it up. But I didn't. Because when someone takes what belongs to everyone and everyone else stays quiet, silence starts to feel like complicity. So I decided to dig deeper. But that was just the beginning. The next morning, I couldn't look anyone in the eye. Everyone in the office was talking about the bonus situation like it was weather. Unpredictable, unavoidable, and nobody's fault. HR was telling people to stay positive. The CFO sent a memo full of empty optimism, but I couldn't unsee those files. I couldn't unread the words. Once it clears, we're free. I kept checking Mark's calendar. Still empty. Julia's profile had gone offline too. Her voicemail said she was on personal leave. Convenient. Nobody leaves for personal reasons the exact week $500,000 disappears. By Wednesday, something inside me snapped. I wasn't angry because of the money. I wasn't even expecting a big bonus myself. I was angry because everyone pretended not to notice. Like it was easier to accept that $480K had just evaporated than to believe that someone had stolen it. That night, I went back to the office again. The cleaning crew was vacuuming the hallway. I nodded at them like I belonged there because technically I did. Inside Mark's office, the air felt heavier. Maybe just guilt settling in. I went through his filing cabinet, this time slower, methodical. There was a folder marked Vendor Correspondence. Inside, printed email chains all too neat. The last one had a timestamp. Sunday, 11:42 p.m. The subject line, Wire Confirmation. Attached was a fake invoice from Nova Vista LLC and a signature from Julia. The header read, Sent from my iPhone. That meant she'd been doing this outside the secure network. But then something else. A printed receipt for a storage unit, under Mark's name, dated 3 days before he vanished. The unit number was scrawled in pen. B2-14, East River Storage. I didn't sleep that night. I just stared at the receipt on my desk, flipping it over and over. I was torn between calling the police or just pretending none of it existed. But curiosity, again, won. Saturday morning, I drove to East River Storage. The attendant barely looked up from his phone when I asked about Unit B214. Paid for 6 months, he said. Automatic renewal. Access with this keycard. I showed him the one I'd found in Mark's drawer. The light blinked green. Inside, the storage unit was spotless. No dust, no boxes, just a locked metal cabinet bolted to the floor and a stack of cardboard tubes. Blueprints, company plans. I recognized our logo. I opened one of the tubes and froze. It was a development plan for a project that had been canceled months ago. The same project whose residual budget Mark had redirected to bonuses. Only now, those plans had his initials all over them, like he was preparing to relaunch the project privately. There were also property assessment forms, signed by a different name, Marcos Landon, the same initials, ML. He wasn't hiding from the company. He was starting over with our money. I took photos of everything, documents, dates, even the corner of the metal cabinet. My heart pounded so hard I thought I'd set off the motion sensors. I left as fast as I could, hands trembling on the steering wheel. That night, I sent an anonymous email to HR with the subject line, Potential Fraud, Urgent. I attached one photo, just one, to prove I wasn't bluffing. The fake invoice from Nova Vista LLC. No name, no signature, just facts. The next morning, I got a meeting invite from corporate security. The email was polite but cold. Please come to room 317 at 2 p.m. to discuss a matter concerning data access. My stomach dropped. When I walked in, 2 people I'd never seen before were waiting. A man in a gray suit and a woman with a laptop open typing notes before I even sat down. The man smiled the way lawyers do when they already know the answer to every question they're about to ask. Mr. Hanley, he said, we've been informed that you accessed files from your supervisor's system without authorization. I froze. I have clearance. He raised a hand. Your clearance expired the day Mr. Leland went on leave. You continued accessing confidential data afterward. That's a serious violation. They weren't investigating Mark. They were investigating me. I tried to explain. The missing money, the fake invoices, the storage unit, but their faces didn't move. The woman just typed faster. When I mentioned Julia, the man looked up for the first time. Ms. Gibbons tendered her resignation last week. He leaned back. Do you have any proof of your allegations? I almost laughed. Proof? I had terabytes of it. But if I handed it over now, it would vanish. Locked behind internal review. I needed leverage first, so I lied. No, I said. Just suspicions. He smiled again, like a shark finally closing its jaw. Then we're done here. As I left the room, I caught a glimpse of the woman's screen. My name was on a report titled Unauthorized Access. Disciplinary Review Pending. They were building a case against me. That night, I poured myself a drink and stared at my laptop. Every file I had could either destroy my career or save it. I had no allies, no guarantees, just evidence, and one wild, reckless idea. Mark's home address was on the payroll sheet. His mailbox had been overflowing for days, according to the neighbors. If he'd really run off, I could maybe find one thing, one clue to clear my name. I opened his old expense folder again. One document slipped out that I hadn't noticed before. A signed authorization form granting temporary data, access to me, dated a month before he disappeared. My name, his signature. A surge of relief hit me so hard it almost hurt. I wasn't trespassing. I'd been authorized. I scanned it immediately, time-stamped the file, and backed it up 3 times. For the first time in a week, I smiled. It wouldn't save me completely. Not yet. But it was something solid. I didn't know it yet, but that discovery would cost me everything. Mark came back on a Thursday morning like nothing had happened. No warning, no email, no press release from HR explaining his leave. He just walked in wearing a fresh suit and a smirk, carrying a Starbucks cup like the last 2 weeks had been a long weekend. People actually clapped. That's what broke me first, the applause. Like we were welcoming back a hero instead of a man who'd vanished with $500,000. Good to see you, boss, someone said. He smiled, eyes sweeping the office until they found me. Good to see you too, Hanley. It wasn't a greeting. It was a warning. By noon, rumors spread that corporate security had closed their access data breach investigation. No charges, just internal coaching. The same afternoon, I got a new meeting invite. From Mark. Mandatory. When I stepped into his office, the air felt staged. Fresh flowers on the shelf. Blinds open, coffee steaming. He was already sitting, hands folded like a judge. Sit down, he said, all professional warmth. We need to talk. He let the silence hang for a full 10 seconds. I could hear the faint buzz of the fluorescent light. You accessed my system, he said finally. You went through confidential material. Copied files, left your digital fingerprints everywhere. That's a fireable offense. I forced myself to breathe evenly. You signed a temporary authorization form granting me access on March 3rd. He blinked, just once, but I saw it. The brief flicker of panic behind his eyes. That document's invalid, he said smoothly. Old draft. You should have checked with HR. I did, I said quietly. They confirmed it's on record. He didn't answer. He just leaned back, tapping a pen against the desk. You know, he said, I've always liked you. Hard worker, honest. Maybe a little too honest. So I'm giving you a chance to walk away from this. No drama, no lawyers. Just resign quietly. Say it's burnout. I'll make sure your file stays clean. That was the moment I realized he wasn't scared. He was confident, arrogant, because he thought I hadn't gone far enough. He assumed I'd only seen the surface, the fake invoices, maybe a few receipts. He had no idea I'd found the storage unit. I didn't respond, just looked at him, long enough for his smile to fade a little. Then I said, "You were at the office at 2:13 a.m. on March 28th, right?" He froze. "Excuse me?" "The security log," I said. "Your card scanned at 2:13 a.m., right before the transfer to Nova Vista." For a second his mask cracked, and then it came back. "You're mistaken." "I'm not," I said, sliding my phone across the desk. The photo of the access log glowed on the screen. "I took the liberty of making a backup, just in case." He stared at it, then laughed softly. The kind of laugh men use when they're losing control but want to pretend they aren't. "Jesus, Hanley," he said, shaking his head. "You've been busy." "Just thorough," I said. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "You think this ends the way you want it to? You think you're the hero here? You're not. You're the guy who crossed the wrong person's line." I stood up. "Then I guess we'll see whose line it really was." He didn't stop me as I left, but I could feel his stare burning between my shoulders all the way to the elevator. That night, I met with an old friend, Rachel, one of the internal auditors who owed me a favor. We met in a diner outside town, the kind that smells like coffee and rain. I slid her a USB drive with everything, the invoices, the transfers, the logs, even a photo of the storage unit. "Don't send it to legal," I told her. "Send it to the board directly, and make sure they see the timestamps." She looked at me like I was setting fire to my own life. "You realize this could backfire." "Already has," I said. "Just make sure it lands in the right inboxes." By morning, Mark was in panic mode. He called an emergency meeting shouting about internal leaks and defamation, but I wasn't invited. That afternoon, 2 men from the audit committee showed up with badges and briefcases. They walked right past me and into his office. The blinds closed. The hallway went quiet. 10 minutes later, I heard Mark's voice through the door, raised, angry, desperate, then silence. When the door opened, he looked smaller. His face was pale, his tie loosened. The 2 men left without a word. Mark just sat there behind his desk, staring at something I couldn't see. That should have been satisfying. But it wasn't. Not yet. At 6:00 p.m., I was packing up when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. A voice said, "We should talk, Mr. Hanley. Privately." It was Julia. She sounded tired, scared. "He told me to sign those invoices. He said it was a temporary transfer for tax reasons. I didn't know." "You authorized 3 fake vendors," I said. "You knew." I didn't know how far it went." There was a pause. Then she said, "He has backups, hidden ones. If he's going down, he'll take everyone with him, even you." I felt cold all over. "What backups?" "The safe in his office, behind the picture frame. He keeps paper copies of every transfer. Your name's on one of them. He forged your approval line." My heart dropped. Of course he had. I ended the call and drove straight back to the office, every nerve screaming that this was stupid, reckless, suicidal. But the building was empty, the night guard half asleep in the lobby. I used my badge, still active somehow, and slipped into Mark's office. The picture frame was heavy. Behind it, a small electronic safe blinked quietly. I entered his birth date, 11/2/75, the only number I'd ever seen him use for anything. The lock clicked open. Inside were envelopes. 3 of them, each labeled with initials, JG, ML, and mine, RH. I opened mine. Inside was a printed copy of a fake approval email, dated weeks earlier, my name typed neatly beneath a signature that wasn't mine. He'd been preparing this since the start. A fall guy. I scanned it with my phone, time-stamped it, and took a photo of the entire safe before closing it again. When I turned around, I caught my reflection in the dark glass of the window. I didn't look scared anymore, just tired and ready. Outside, thunder rolled over the city. The reflection of lightning cut across my face. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like prey. I sent one text to Rachel. "Everything's confirmed. Check the safe if they try to protect him." Then I switched off my phone, slipped the flash drive into my pocket, and walked out. That night, I stopped being the hero. They fired him 3 days later. No press release, no public scandal, no big confrontation, just a quiet clinical removal. By the time I arrived at the office on Monday, Mark's nameplate was gone, his office sealed with a corporate lock, and an email from the board sat in my inbox titled Reorganization Announcement. The company statement was cold and brief. Effective immediately, Mark Leland has resigned from his position. An internal audit has been completed. All matters are now closed. But I knew what closed really meant. It meant contained. They didn't want this mess spilling into the press or the investors' calls. They'd found the fake vendors, the shell transfers, the forged approvals, everything. They couldn't afford headlines. And so, like every corporation faced with a moral crisis, they buried it under paperwork. When I passed his empty office, the blinds were half open. His chair was gone. The shelf was bare except for a small circular mark where that damn coffee mug used to sit. The world's okayest manager mug. Julia was gone too. Her desk had been cleared over the weekend. Rumor said she'd taken a medical leave. But Rachel told me the truth. She'd confessed everything, cooperated with the auditors, and in return they'd let her resign quietly instead of facing prosecution. Mark wasn't that lucky. They found more than stolen bonus money, offshore accounts, kickbacks disguised as vendor fees, internal memos showing he'd manipulated hiring data to inflate his department's performance, all of it tied neatly to his personal accounts. The board didn't call the police right away. Not at first. They waited until the external auditors confirmed every cent. When they finally did, the call wasn't made from the office. It was made from the board chair's private number. Mark was arrested at his home the following week. Embezzlement, wire fraud, falsifying corporate records. He didn't fight it. Didn't even try. Maybe he knew it was over. But that's not the part people remember. What people remember, the few who knew anything at all, is that I didn't stay. HR tried to keep me. They offered a new position, a quiet promotion, even a signing bonus. You helped us catch him, they said. You could build a future here. But I couldn't. Because the truth is, once you've seen how far a company will go to protect its image, you can't unsee it. You can't unhear the silence of people who look the other way. I didn't want revenge anymore. I just wanted quiet. So I wrote my resignation letter in 10 sentences, printed it, and left it on the HR director's desk. No speech, no farewell lunch, just my signature and a line that said, "Thank you for the opportunity." When I cleared my desk, I found something wedged behind the monitor, a sticky note with my handwriting. I didn't remember writing it, but there it was. Don't let silence make you complicit. I folded it and slipped it into my wallet. At 6 p.m., I took the elevator down one last time. The lobby was empty except for the security guard, the same old man who'd nodded at me every night for years. He looked up from his crossword. "Long day?" he asked. I smiled. "Long month." Outside, the evening air was cool and clean. For the first time in weeks, my head didn't hurt. My chest didn't feel tight. Across the street, the reflection of the buildings shimmered on the glass of the cafe. My own reflection beside it looked older, steadier. I walked to my car, opened the door, and sat there for a while, listening to the hum of traffic. I thought about the files I'd given to Rachel, now sealed in some secure archive, and about the others I hadn't shared, the recordings, the timestamps, the photos of the storage unit. I'd kept one copy of everything, not to expose, but to remember, not as proof of what I'd done, but of what I'd survived. The next day I woke up without an alarm. I made coffee at home, not in a break room that smelled like paper and burnout. I didn't check my email. I didn't scroll through Slack. I just sat on my balcony and watched the city wake up. A week later, I got a certified letter from the company. Inside was a final paycheck, a signed letter of recommendation, and one line in bold. As a token of appreciation for your diligence and integrity, the board has approved a discretionary payment equivalent to your Q4 bonus, $4,800, my share of what he tried to steal. It wasn't about the money, it never had been. But when I held that check in my hand, something inside me finally exhaled. They thought I'd take the promotion and stay quiet. Instead, I walked away, with peace. The company moved on, like companies always do. New leadership, new promises, new slogans about integrity and trust. Mark's name vanished from every report, his photo scrubbed from the company archives. But sometimes when I pass the building on my way to meet friends or grab coffee, I catch a glimpse of the 14th floor window. His old office. It's always dark, always empty. And every time I see it, I think about the night I sat alone in that same room, holding the evidence that could have ruined my life or saved it, and realizing that the two things weren't all that different. He thought he'd buried me under his lies. Turns out I was the one digging his grave,